Hello there. I've created this European street environment in the URP pipeline using the Unity engine. This small environment consists of a variety of assets, almost all of which are custom made by me. I was inspired by the various environments of IO Interactive's Hitman series, where Agent 47 travels to various locations across the world. These locations range from Europe to America, even Japan and India. I imagined what it would be like to create a location like that, but obviously time and labor constraints get in the way. So I ended up creating a small game-ready environment with good optimization techniques when it comes to shaders, LOD system structuring, and GPU resident roars occlusion culling. The result is in front of you. I created a modular kit for walls and doorways. As you can see, these are all walls, doorways here as well. I sculpted a tree and remeshed it, optimized it, then its topology, I retopologized it. I baked from high poly to low poly, after which I textured it and created a few LODs of it. I used basic like leaf textures that I then mapped onto branches, which then I mapped onto the tree. You know, this tree has a couple of LODs, actually 3 LODs, but you only need 2 in this scene because it's a relatively small scene. I also used geometry nodes for this vine here. This also has a few LODs, 3 LODs in total, like this. You don't need the third one. And these were created in geometry nodes in Blender. Basically, created this to give more detail to the environment. It was relatively simple. I had to simply create a Bezier curve that I used the draw tool in Blender to draw onto the balcony. And there's a surface draw option in Blender that you can enable. I drew it, and then I also added density modifiers to modify the number of leaves that there's going to be, and also randomize their rotation and scale a little bit. And then, you know, it's just instance on faces. And then I managed the density with a slider and created 3 different versions. And I brought them in here. It's relatively low poly, does not add too much to the overall poly count. I then added a particle effect for leaves so that it adds a little bit of life into the scene. Let's listen to that. The sound effect. And when it comes to the particle system, this is what it looks like. Makes the scene feel alive, this falling leaf particle effect. Also having decals over here to make it look like the leaves are collecting on top of the table and on the floor, as you can see. I maintained a consistent texel density everywhere. I chose a texel density of 10.24 texels per meter square, and every single asset, literally every single asset, follows this texel density. Not even a single one of them moves even slightly. Like, I made sure of that. And I also added a fading effect to the leaves. Basically, the fade effect is when right after it spawns and before it despawns, to make its appearance and disappearance more gentle so that it doesn't look like it's clipping in and out of existence too abruptly. To add more to the scene, I added an animation as well, which really helped, this fan blade animating. It adds to the scene. The directional light acts as the sun, and it offers mixed global illumination. Meanwhile, interior lights, these lights are set to baked. So they bake the light as well as the shadows, everything into the light maps. Like, it saves in terms of processing power, but also it does have some impact on the memory, but the memory consumption is minute, comparatively speaking. These are all spotlights. They're disabled for now because they're already baked into the light maps. I'm using 4 times MSAA for anti-aliasing and not TAA, as it tends to make things look a bit blurry, especially at a distance. MSAA can, however, fail to correct some shader or geometric specular aliasing issues. Unity offers a toggle in HDRP called Geometric Specular Anti-Aliasing, And if you toggle that, then it fixes the issue. But in URP, we don't get that. So I had to manually create a Toxvig mapping shader subgraph. This is the master shader, which contains information. This is relatively simple. And this is the Toxvig mapping subgraph that I created. This is what it looks like. You take in the normal map information, it goes into the transform node, and tangent gets converted to world via direction, normalizes it, the ddx, ddy, then you take a dot product of both of them. It's ddx square, ddy square in this case. And then you send it into a maximum node and saturate it. And then this is specular AA curve. The lower this value, the better the specular anti-aliasing. You don't want it to go too low though, because if it goes too low, then it can make the material lose its shine completely. Like it can make it look very matte and plasticky. Then it goes into 1- node and goes into minimum, which then goes into the branch node. If you enable specular AA, or Toxvig AA in this case, then it's going to use this map. Otherwise, it's going to use the default smoothness values. So that's how it has been set up. And it works fine. There's actually a paper written by Square Enix about it's called Improved Geometric Specular Anti-Aliasing. You should definitely consider reading that. It's a very, very good paper. It uses a similar method, but instead of using the normal map, it uses geometric normals. So basically it's going to contain a normal vector instead, going into, I guess, a normalized node, which then goes into ddx and ddy like this. And then after that, it's the same thing until here. You go dot product, both of them, and I guess this as well. And then instead of maximizing it, I think you're supposed to add it, as far as I understand the mathematics behind it. And from here, you now have the geometric variance. You can saturate it, or you can combine it with the smoothness map value via a multiply node. But you're not gonna actually use the smoothness map value just like that. What you're actually going to use is you're going to take the smoothness map value and convert it into roughness by using a 1- node, and then that 1- node will then multiply by itself because you want roughness square, and then you use the multiply node after that to get the output of this variance. That would be the appropriate way to use geometric specular anti-aliasing, but I didn't choose to do that. I used this particular map because it works fine. It's cheaper as well. It's a simpler graph, and I don't have to do any conversions on this. Another thing that needs to be taken into consideration here is that I am using a mask map here. So every single one of my materials has a mask map. This is what I'm using, TGA files, all of them. And the mask map contains obviously RGBA information. R will be metallic, G will be ambient occlusion, B will be details, which is not being used, A will be the alpha value, which is actually containing smoothness information, which I obviously am multiplying with a smoothness strength slider. So that's how I've set things up over here. As you can see here, if I click on it, this, and let's say I go into the material right here, and let's say I disable specular AA. Notice the shimmer. Notice all this. That's what it's solving. If I toggle it on, it's gone. You know, lower, higher, that's what it does. That is its purpose. And I'm not enabling it on everything, but I'm enabling it on quite a lot of pieces because it makes things a lot better. All the assets have been textured by me, except for these food assets, which I just got from Fab, Fab Marketplace. The textile density is consistent. I'm using 1K, 2K, 4K textures. 4K textures are rare. Also, creating things like this, for example, it looks like as if something's going on inside. You can't really enter it, I mean, physically as the player, but this gives a little sense of like these curtains, sense of like more story, what's going on over there. I didn't want to overcomplicate things for such a small environment, so I just went with a simpler and cheaper method. And I created and sculpted models in Blender, but textured them in a piece of software called Instamat, which is like Substance Painter and Substance Designer combined into one, allowing for both workflows and techniques in separate sections of the toolkit. I can actually show you that. This is what Instamat looks like. And in Instamat, I have all of these different assets that I have textured. This is asset packing for the flower pot. As you can see, individually they are, just one asset, one more asset, these two different assets, and then this base asset, and then I've appended them into a single asset like this, turned them into a single FBX, and then painted into them. This is using a single UV map for all three of these assets, 1, 2, and 3. I've added all the details using generators. I've painted in radial symmetry these designs onto them, and used mesh gradient for this mud at the bottom. So yeah. Now this is what the actual playable demo looks like. This is the build, as you can see. If you notice at the top left, it's running at 144 FPS with a frame time of 6.94 ms and GPU utilization of mostly less than 75%. And the GPU power is at 82 watts, which goes usually lower. Pretty much every single one of these statistics show you that it is a relatively well-optimized scene. I'm using GPU resident drawer with occlusion culling, which has some overhead. So technically, I can run this scene at 250 FPS if VSync is disabled, and it can go all the way up to 300 FPS if I use static batching instead of GPU resident drawer. But the reason I'm not doing that is because that does not let the scene remain scalable. Right now the scene is quite scalable. I can actually make this scene significantly bigger, because if this was a Hitman map, then it would be much bigger. So it's currently just capped at frame rate is capped at 144, and frame time is also capped at 6.94 and doesn't go any lower than that, because it's giving the GPU breathing room. You can download this environment demo from my itch.io page, and you can play it yourself. It's about 600 megabytes in size. Should work perfectly fine on all modern GPUs, whether mid-range, high-range, even budget range GPUs. Should be able to run it comfortably without any issues, and you should be able to get decent performance out of it. If there's anything that you would like me to improve on it, please let me know.